Throners, it's Azor Hype here with the most hype Game of Thrones Season 7 Episode 2 Stormborn scene-by-scene breakdown. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so, as I'll be doing videos every day for Game of Thrones Season 7. Game of Thrones Season 7 Episode 1 Dragonstone was powerful, moving us with deep personal moments and setting us up with generous amounts of foreshadowing. Game of Thrones Season 7 Episode 2 Stormborn had a similar tone, yet hammered home the importance of family, love, and explored the ideas of reconnecting with the past. The first scene does this beautifully, reconnecting us to the moment of Dany's birth as she was born in a storm, and it sets the tone for the episode, showing us the rebirth of Daenerys and restoring the Targaryen power and name to Westeros. At Dragonstone, Daenerys has a tense scene with Lord Varys. She confronts him about how he initially supported her brother Viserys, who is very much like her mad father. And she also points out how he orchestrated her marriage to Khal Drogo with the help of Valyrio and the assassination attempt under the rule of Robert Baratheon. Both actors nailed this scene for me as Varys shows his true colors. Her father's name comes up again and it casts a shadow over her. However, Varys assures her he's on her side and that his loyalties lie with not the great lords but with the people. A major question that has been asked throughout Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire has been, what does he stand for? And what is he really up to and why is he so secretive? I think it's because he's ashamed of the past, and the past was a big time theme throughout this episode. But he's a great example of what an advisor should be. He's very much like a Davos Seaworth, someone that has learned from experience and ripe with wisdom. So they reach a deal and Dany makes him swear, instead of turning on her, that he'll tell her to her face if she's failing the people. And then in turn, she swears, if you ever betray me, I'll burn you alive. I absolutely love this scene. I do feel positive about Daenerys because she is supported by a great cast of characters, but ultimately the lesson here is that she will ultimately have to be judged by her actions and not her family's legacy. Next we hear Grey Worm tell Daenerys that a red priest from Ashai is there to visit her, and we see that Melisandre, who was teased to be on Dragonstone from the previous trailers and Season 7 photos, is in Dragonstone. I absolutely loved how Melisandre introduced herself in this scene in High Valyrian. It makes the scene feel exotic and alien, like we're learning something new every time this language is spoke. And we learn about her new goal when she tells Daenerys that the Long Night is coming and that the prince that was promised will need to fight back the Long Night. We all have a character in mind when we think of the prince that was promised in Jon Snow, but Missandei reminds us that in High Valyrian, the noun prince does not have a gender, giving new meaning to this prophecy. We also have to recall that Maester Aemon said the same thing about this prophecy, he or she, and he was someone that was trustworthy and in our story, so his lessons and examples and opinions stand for something. Of course, Varys warns Dany that Melisandre used to support Stannis Baratheon in his mission to take the Iron Throne, which ultimately failed, but she listens nonetheless and is intrigued at the idea of having a role to play in the War for Dawn. I'm still a bit down on Daenerys as a character moving forward, as she is still a bit impulsive, being ruled over by emotion, claiming that Jon Snow will need to bend the knee. However, I'm really enjoying her growth, and I believe that when she meets Jon, she will have a similar kill the boy moment and will reconsider how to approach things as they grow closer throughout the season. Next, we see that Jon receives the letter from Tyrion Lannister and he is to be summoned to meet with the future Queen of Westeros. This is met with a large dose of skepticism from Sansa, but of course we have the real MVP Davos Seaworth throwing in his 2 cents about dragons and dragonfire and how they can kill whites. But Jon is one of the few characters who has had a long view of the events of Game of Thrones thus far. He has shown that he understands the bigger picture and that the army of the dead will wipe them all out if they don't band together. And those words couldn't ring more true. None of you have seen the army of the dead. This is why I believe Jon would make a good king. And he considered reason in the form of an opinion from Davos Seaworth that fire is a tool that they will need to use even if they have dragon glass weaponry. The symbolism of dragons could be a nod that also Jon and Daenerys, as they are both Targaryen, they have a role to play in the War for Dawn, and it also connects the themes of this episode, which is to family. Of course, this isn't the only letter that matters, as Jon lets the Northern Lords know that Samwell has informed them of a dragonglass mine or mountain under Dragonstone, and this is absolutely massive because logistically and strategically it impacts the way the Northern forces can defend themselves. We do, however, see a mini revolt against Jon's decision to leave the North, but he does have a plan and he is making thoughtful decisions as their leader. And speaking of strategy, I thought it was a brilliant move of Jon to appoint Sansa, his sister, in his stead as pseudo-queen in the North, even after she reminds him that their grandfather Rickard Stark traveled south to answer a Targaryen summon, so I think this was a great scene. He hammered home the point that he would have to meet Daenerys in person to make a lasting impact, and it's true, she may only listen to a king. Next, in the Crypts of Winterfell, we see him admiring the beautiful Ned Stark statue. I actually fell to the ground and it brought a tear to my eye. And we see Peter Baelish interrupt him. We get the important information that he was the one to return Ned's bones himself, so that's a huge thing that we didn't know. So that's confirmed. But of course, it's Littlefinger, and he's a sneaky snake with his Machiavellian tactics, and he tries to trigger Jon into an emotional response, which works, and Jon says he will kill him if he tries anything with Sansa. I'm loving Jon embracing his fireside, and I actually think even though it has led him to make decisions like the one in the Battle of the Bastards, it makes him a stronger and more balanced character. Next, we see Samwell with Archmaester Ebrose, and Sam is trying his hardest to let him treat Ser Jorah Mormont. There's something very curious that Archmaester Ebrose specifically about that line about the title of the Archmaester's history book, which is titled The Chronicles of the War Following the Death of King Robert Baratheon. He said it should be something more poetic, and I think this could be foreshadowing that Sam will write the Song of Ice and Fire after it's all said and done. So I'm going to do a theory video this week about this specific interaction. But Sam lets Ebrose know that he found a book written by Archmaester Pylos about the treatment that cured 2 cases of advanced grayscale. However, Archmaester Pylos died of grayscale himself after treating them. So next, we see Jorah in his room being examined by Archmaester Ebrose with Samwell, and we learn that Jorah will not die for many years, even though his grayscale is advanced. However, he will lose his mind in 6 months or less. Ebrose tells Jorah that he would have to send him to Asshai that moment if he wasn't a sworn knight, but since he is a nobleman and a sworn knight, Jorah will have 1 more night at the Citadel. Again, family being a major theme of the episode, we learn when Sam is talking about family to Jorah, asking him where he's from, his past. Jorah is filled with regret, and in this moment, Sam appears to be hit by a storm of overwhelming confidence because of who he served at Castle Black in Jeor Mormont. I love the connection between the two and how courageous Sam has become. Jorah is also one tough dude, as we see his skin basically get chiseled away and ripped off his chest. But Jorah had to be quiet, or both of their lives could have been put in peril because Sam was not allowed to treat the grayscale. So another awesome bromance we can look forward to in Season 7. Next, we see Cersei scheming, scaring the Lords of Westeros, telling them that the Mad King's daughter is coming, and this was the second time that he was brought up this episode, and it was ironic because she was saying most of what she described about Daenerys, twisted with her brutality and saying that she is no different than her father, is actually more likely that Cersei has some of these qualities. She's actually more likened to Aerys than Daenerys has ever been. So we hear talks about what she's done at the Sept of Baelor throughout the episode, and I found this interesting because this could be the first whispers throughout the realm that this is the first evidence that she has become the Mad Queen. We then hear Randyll Tarly throw in his 2 cents and mention Aegon the Conqueror, which is in my opinion a far better comparison to Daenerys than her father Aerys, but despite being an absolute cunt to his son Samwell Tarly, we hear an intelligent and pragmatic Randyll propose the real questions of how they will deal with dragons. Cersei harpens on his hatred for the wildlings and makes the comparison to the Dothraki and how Dany's forces will destroy their castles and their armies. We then hear Qyburn talk about how they will deal with the dragons and how he has a special plan to remedy the situation. Next, we see the scene between Jaime and Randyll, and we find out that Jaime could also be as manipulative as Cersei, using prejudice as a pressure point, but Randyll is not easily swayed because he is loyal to his liege lords and his house's reputation. I actually gained a lot more respect for him this episode because of his honesty, and feel like even though him and Sam seem like completely different people, that Sam still carries some of the qualities that his father might have, like courage and honor with his word. We then see Qyburn take Cersei underneath the Red Keep, and we hear them talk about the skulls of the dragons that Robert kept as trophies, and we see the massive skull of Balerion the Black Dread. I believe at some point this season we will see how massive Drogon has truly become the Alpha Dragon, possibly the greatest asset that the Realms of Men will have to win against the fight against the Night King. We then hear the new Master of Whispers and Hand of the Queen tell Cersei that Drogon was wounded at the dragon pit with spears, and he unveils what's called a scorpion, and it basically fires a massive bolt, and we see that bolt pierce the skull of Balerion. So that's pretty huge, and this could be a foreshadowing for something happening with the dragons. But this is a callback to the First Dornish War after Aegon's conquest in 10 AC. Rhaenys Targaryen rode Meraxes to Dorne when they reached the Hellholt, the seat of House Uller. Upon arriving in Hellholt, the Dornish fighters fired a large iron bolt from a scorpion, the exact type of weapon Qyburn has designed, and Meraxes died. It got a bolt right in the eye. So that's something that possibly could be foreshadowing for one of the dragons dying this season. Back to Dragonstone, we are in the war room and we see Daenerys and her allies are discussing how to approach the siege of King's Landing. With her Ironborn spirit, we see that Yara is giving solid advice to strike while the iron is hot, and it's not surprising as raids are part of their culture, but Yara is not a strategic leader, she is more of a battle commander. We then have the Queen of Thorns, who seems to steal every scene she's in, and she's telling Daenerys in reality that she will need to be a dragon and will need to instill fear in the lords so that she can make a lasting impact. But not everyone agrees, as Tyrion gets into it with Illyria, talking about how they murdered a little girl, his niece Myrcella, which is ironic because Oberyn was honorable and fought in the trial by combat versus the Mountain because of this very reason. But I love the fact that Olenna tells her the truth, that she's outlived many wise men because of how she handles herself, and she tells Daenerys to express herself and be herself, otherwise she will not be successful in her endeavor of conquering Westeros. Of course, Tyrion chimes in as Hand of the Queen and offers his battle plan to use the Dornish and Tyrell's armies to attack King's Landing from all sides. It's a brilliant move because we hear Cersei propagate the message that she wants to destroy the realm, Daenerys, and this would dispel the propaganda that Daenerys will just use the Dothraki and the Unsullied to wipe out all of her forces and get rid of all who stand in her way. Something that is explored in this episode is fear, and we know that love is the main cause of fear because love is the greatest feeling of all, and the fear of losing true love romantically or with friendship is huge. This is the theme of the story of the Song of Ice and Fire, fear and love, and we see Grey Worm and Missandei express this. We see because of past circumstances that they were never truly able to act on these feelings or emotions. But love wins this battle as they do not want to fear and take away the present. However, I do think that this will be the last time that Missandei and Grey Worm ever see each other, and I think that Grey Worm will die at the Siege of Casterly Rock. We then move on to the Inn at the Crossroads, and we see Arya sitting, and Hot Pie recognizes her. Thank you, Dan and Dave. Ugh, I love me some Hot Pie. But we do see how confident Arya has become. She's more mature because of her adventures and her experiences. We then see a couple moments with Arya and Hot Pie, and we see Hot Pie say, "What happened to you, Arya?" This shows Arya's transformation, as she is not the same as before because the past changed her, but nonetheless, we see her chomp down on some pies, and we see her reference her own Frey pies from the finale of Season 6 when she begged Walder Frey's sons into a pie. Hot Pie then brings up Brienne and if she found Arya, and Arya replies yes, but sort of half lies to Hot Pie, and Hot Pie asks where Arya is going, and she replies to King's Landing. Now this is one of my favorite moments of the episode. Hot Pie lets Arya know that Jon won the Battle of the Bastards, and he is king in the north. Arya gets super excited. This was a super touching moment for me, meaning that Arya could finally go back home, but come back to her wolf pack, and yes, Arya is going back to Winterfell. Absolutely awesome. Also a funny moment when Hot Pie called himself a survivor. Me and my friends had a good laugh there. But we see Arya take off north and set a fire, and we see her horses get agitated, and she is greeted by her direwolf Nymeria with her wolf pack. Nymeria is absolutely huge, and perhaps her being in the wild makes it similar to how the dragons are in the wild when they are able to hunt and range appropriately. This scene showed Arya trying to reconnect with her past, the symbol of House Stark, the direwolf, but that's gone now, and Nymeria has her own pact, and Arya knows this by saying, "That's not you." When he told Arya that she would have her own holdfast with little prince and princess someday, then and there Arya realizes that she must return to her pack, the Starks, in Winterfell. And then we have the most epic scene of the episode, the epic sea battle with Euron Greyjoy against Dany's Ironborn and Dornish forces. First, we see Yara and Illyria having a conversation, flirting, talking about how there will be a foreign invasion of Illyria into Yara's cunt as they are sailing to Sunspear. But we learn very fast as this won't be happening, as we see Euron's forces intercept their portion of the Iron Fleet. We see the most badass entrance possible as he descends on what's called a corvus, which looks like tentacle of a kraken, which was a Roman military boarding device used in naval warfare during the First Punic War against Carthage. Corvus also means crow or raven in Latin, giving credence to Euron being the crow's eye. He's called the maddest of them all for a reason, and he doesn't disappoint. Most of this scene focuses on the ensuing chaos, and we see Euron kill both of the Sand Snakes in epic fashion, Mortal Kombat style. Finish him with fatality! and the other Sand Snake, Tyene, is sent below deck to protect her mother, but ultimately she is overwhelmed and fails as they are captured and will be presented to Cersei as gifts. Eventually, Yara realizes that she's on a sinking ship, so she tries to go out with a bang and ends up being beaten and captured by a crazed Euron Greyjoy, as Theon can only look on and revert back to Reek because of his post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I want to say this. Alfie Allen, who plays Theon, is criminally underappreciated in the show, and in this moment I felt sad, mad, frustrated, and somewhat happy that he survived. I definitely think that he will have a chance to come back and save Yara, as he will have a redemptive arc. His name is Theon, which comes from the word pantheon, meaning all the gods, but if we take the root of the word, it actually means god, which could mean that Theon will become Theon the Latecomer, the true servant of the Drown God. Either way, this scene was amazing, and for me, Pilu Aspect, who plays Euron Greyjoy, was the MVP of the episode. He was absolutely frightening as Euron Greyjoy. But while Game of Thrones Season 7 is not disappointing, and the themes that were explored in this episode, fear, family, love, weathering the storms of the past, or being reborn in its nature, are truly amazing. But what do you think? Who is the MVP of this episode? Which moment made you feel love or fear the most? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Let's create an epic discussion. If you enjoyed this video, a like would be much appreciated, and I'm going to set a goal of 700 likes for this video. Likes really help the channel grow, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so, as I will be doing videos like this every day for Game of Thrones Season 7. Announcement: tonight we will be going live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Azor Hype with a super awesome special guest, Axe Chucker from Watchers on the Wall. Me, Secrets of the Citadel, and George are very excited to be hosting another awesome member of the Game of Thrones community. We met Axe Chucker at Con of Thrones, me and George, and he's an awesome dude. So make sure you bring the hype for the live chat and come hang out with us. If supporting the channel is something you're interested in and you want to become part of the hardcore members of the Azor Hype community, you can support me on Patreon. I have all sorts of cool rewards, setting up early access to my write-ups, videos, and some extra hype content coming. So thank you all of you awesome patrons who help make what I do possible. Thank you so much for watching, stay hype, and 7 blessings.
Fuck the king.
How much for your little man?
It's